Steelers Nation, let's get straight into the heart of this conversation, because the discussion around DK Metcalf has taken on a life of its own, and it deserves a more grounded look. Metcalf has never been a classic volume receiver, and that reality did not suddenly change in the most recent season. His usage followed a pattern that has been consistent throughout his professional career, even if the raw numbers surprised part of the fan base that was expecting something louder and more dominant every single week. When you look closely at his target totals, the most recent season shows 99 passes thrown in his direction. That is technically a career low, but it is not some wild statistical outlier when you stack it next to the rest of his years in the league. He has lived most of his career hovering around that same neighborhood, with seasons at 100, 108, 119, 129, and even 141 targets. The dip feels dramatic because expectations were sky high, not because the role suddenly vanished or because he stopped being who he has always been on the field. The same logic applies to the catches and the yardage. 59 receptions for 850 yards is not a disastrous season in a vacuum, but it feels underwhelming when you measure it against memories of eras where one receiver could dominate touches, dictate coverages, and tilt the entire offense on his own. Fans who lived through those years became accustomed to seeing constant fireworks, and anything short of that can feel like a letdown even when the player is still productive. That is why frustration around Metcalf existed even before the emotional moment on the sideline that everyone remembers. If that incident had never happened, there would still be a large segment of the fan base calling the season disappointing. And honestly, that disappointment is understandable. When the team made the move to bring him in, it felt massive. It felt like one of those franchise-altering decisions that instantly elevates the offense. Many people looked back at his seasons in Seattle and thought the same thing. Give him just a few more opportunities and the numbers would explode. That belief only grew stronger once it became clear he was spending significant time building chemistry with the quarterback, especially during the off-season work. The assumption was simple. More trust would lead to more targets. More targets would lead to more production, and everything would fall into place. Instead, several obstacles showed up almost immediately and never really went away. The first problem was protection. The offensive line struggled to give the quarterback enough time for the kinds of routes that best suit Metcalf. His game is built on speed, power, and routes that need space to develop. When the pocket collapses too quickly, those plays never even get a chance to exist. You cannot fully unleash a receiver like that if the quarterback is forced to rush throws or check the ball down before Metcalf can turn on the jets. The second issue is something that has followed him for years, long before he ever wore black and gold. He has an odd habit of dropping an early, routine pass in games. The throw hits him cleanly, right in the chest, and somehow ends up incomplete. It is frustrating to watch because it feels unnecessary, and it instantly puts a spotlight on him. The strange part is that once that drop happens, he usually settles in and plays solid football the rest of the way. Even the painful drop in the playoff loss followed a pattern that has existed throughout his career, not something new or unique to this situation. The third factor is the one people are least interested in hearing right now, but it matters more than most want to admit. Metcalf did not have real support in the wide receiver room. There were players who brought energy, toughness, and professionalism, but none of them truly fit the role of a legitimate second wide receiver who could consistently threaten defenses. Without that second presence, opposing teams did not have to fear getting punished elsewhere, even if Metcalf was not seeing constant double coverage on paper. Coverage is not just about how many defenders line up over one player. It is about stress. It is about whether a defense feels anxious about what someone else might do if they shift too much attention in one direction. Without that fear, coverage becomes cleaner, timing becomes easier, and passing windows shrink. That lack of balance made life harder for everyone involved, not just Metcalf. Responsibility for that situation is spread across multiple areas. The front office did not supply a true second option. The overall offensive philosophy remained hesitant about attacking the middle of the field. The scheme struggled to consistently manufacture separation for its receivers, regardless of who was lining up outside. All of that combined into an environment where Metcalf was expected to elevate everything, while not being fully set up to do so. Looking ahead, what makes the most sense is a reset. A genuine clean slate where the focus returns to what Metcalf does best instead of what he failed to become. Forget the noise, forget the sideline moment, and remember the version of him that can turn a short pass into a long touchdown simply by lowering his shoulders and accelerating past defenders who want no part of the collision. That player is still there, and the tape proves it. The path forward also requires an aggressive approach to building the receiver group around him. One threat is never enough in today's league. Defenses thrive when they can key in on a single option, and they crumble when forced to choose between multiple legitimate dangers. Adding talent at that position is not a luxury. It is a necessity if the offense wants to unlock its full potential and allow Metcalf to thrive in a role that actually suits his skill set. Building that kind of environment requires more than just optimism. It requires intention. If the front office truly wants to maximize what DK Metcalf can bring to the field, then the approach to the wide receiver position has to change completely. Depth cannot be an afterthought, and complementary skill sets cannot be treated as optional. Modern offenses punish defenses by forcing them into impossible decisions, and that only happens when there are multiple players who can win consistently on the outside. When you study the most dangerous offenses in the league, there is a clear pattern. They do not rely on one star to carry everything on his back. They surround that star with other threats who might not match the headline value, but absolutely command respect. That respect changes how cornerbacks align, how safeties cheat, and how linebackers hesitate. Suddenly, routes that used to feel crowded begin to breathe, and quarterbacks gain the confidence to let plays develop instead of rushing to the safest option. For Metcalf specifically, that balance could be transformative. He is at his best when defenses are unsure whether to press him aggressively or protect themselves from someone else burning them on the opposite side. Without that hesitation, he becomes easier to manage. Not because he is less talented, but because football is a game of leverage and numbers. Give defenses clarity, and they will exploit it. Take that clarity away, and they start making mistakes. There's also a schematic side that cannot be ignored. Too often, the offense struggled to create easy opportunities for its receivers. Everything felt difficult, contested, or perfectly timed against tight coverage. That kind of pressure does not just affect production, it affects confidence and rhythm. Receivers thrive when they touch the ball early, when they feel involved, and when the offense signals that they are a priority, not just a bailout option on third down. Getting Metcalf involved in different ways matters. Quick hitters, slants, shallow crossers, and design touches can all force defenses to react instead of dictate. Once that reaction begins, the deeper routes naturally open up. It is not about turning him into a different player, but about using his physical gifts to stress defenses horizontally before attacking vertically. Another overlooked element is emotional momentum. Football players feed off success, especially early success. When a receiver gets a few clean catches early in a game, it changes his body language, his aggression, and his willingness to fight for extra yards. It also changes how the defense talks about him on the sideline. Suddenly, every snap carries urgency, and that urgency creates cracks. The quarterback position plays a role here as well. Trust is built through repetition and results. When a quarterback knows that a receiver will be where he is supposed to be and will finish the play, throws become more decisive. Hesitation disappears, and timing sharpens. That relationship cannot fully develop when protection breaks down or when the offense constantly plays behind schedule. All of this circles back to one central idea. Expecting Metcalf to be the solution to every offensive problem was never realistic. He is a weapon, not a system. Weapons need systems that highlight their strengths and hide their weaknesses. Without that structure, frustration builds, narratives harden, and the conversation shifts away from football into emotion and blame. The upcoming season represents an opportunity to reshape that narrative, not by lowering expectations, but by aligning them with reality. Metcalf does not need to become a volume monster to be impactful. He needs space, timing, and help. With those elements in place, his production does not have to scream to be devastating. It just has to arrive at the right moments. There's also a broader lesson for the organization embedded in this situation. Star acquisitions create excitement, but excitement alone does not win games. Sustainable success comes from layers, from redundancy, and from preparing for the moments when one player is taken away. The teams that survive deep into the season are the ones that can pivot without panic. If the Steelers commit to that philosophy, the offense can evolve into something far more unpredictable and dangerous. Metcalf would no longer carry the burden of unrealistic comparisons or inherited expectations from past eras. He would simply be asked to do what he does best, within a structure that amplifies his impact rather than exposes his limitations. That kind of reset is not about erasing the past, but about learning from it. The frustration, the missed opportunities, and the uneven stretches all provide information. How the team responds to that information will define not just Metcalf's future, but the direction of the entire offense moving forward. As that direction starts to take shape, there's also a cultural element inside the building that deserves attention. Offensive identity is not just about play calls, it is about shared belief. Players need to feel that the plan makes sense and that their roles are defined with purpose. When that belief wavers, execution suffers, and even elite talent can look ordinary. A receiver like Metcalf thrives when he knows exactly how he fits into the larger picture, and when that picture is reinforced week after week. Continuity plays a major role in that process. Constant adjustment without clear intention creates hesitation. Receivers begin to think instead of react, and defenders gain an edge in those small moments where instinct should take over. The most effective offenses remove doubt from their players by repeating concepts, refining timing, and trusting that preparation will beat complexity. Simplicity, when paired with talent, often becomes unstoppable. Another layer to consider is how opponents prepare. Defensive coordinators spend countless hours identifying tendencies and weaknesses. When an offense lacks variety or balance, those tendencies become obvious. Metcalf has faced that reality throughout his career, where defenses gear their entire plan around limiting his impact. Changing that dynamic requires forcing opponents to respect multiple answers, not just one. That respect does not come from reputation alone. It comes from proof on the field. When secondary receivers consistently win their matchups, when tight ends punish soft zones, and when the run game demands attention, the defense is stretched thinner on every snap. That stretching effect creates the kind of chaos where explosive plays are born, and that is where Metcalf can truly shine. There is also a mental reset that benefits everyone involved. Carrying the weight of unmet expectations can drain energy over the course of a season. Players hear the noise, even when they claim they do not. A fresh approach, backed by tangible changes in personnel and strategy, send a message that the organization is moving forward instead of dwelling on what did not work. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The buzz around Pittsburgh has reached a fever pitch, and the name lighting the fuse is Odell Beckham Jr. Whispers circulating through league circles suggest the star wide receiver has put pen to paper and chosen the black and gold as his next stage. Nothing official has been stamped yet, but the smoke is thick enough to make fans believe there's real fire behind it. The idea of Beckham roaming Acrisure turf has ignited talk radio, flooded timelines, and stirred a fan base hungry for a jolt of star power. According to those close to the situation, Beckham sees Pittsburgh as more than a landing spot. He reportedly views it as a platform for reinvention, a place where tradition meets edge, and where big personalities have long been embraced if they produce. The Steelers' culture, built on toughness and expectation, is said to appeal to a veteran receiver eager to prove he can still tilt coverage and steal headlines. The promise, as the rumor goes, is a show the kind that reminds the league why his name still commands attention. From a football standpoint, the speculation makes sense. Pittsburgh has been searching for a dynamic presence capable of stretching the field and creating moments when plays break down. Beckham's reputation as a clutch, improvisational weapon fits that bill, at least on paper. Insiders hint that conversations have centered on role clarity, health management, and the freedom to be expressive within the structure of the offense. For a franchise that has balanced discipline with swagger before, it's a familiar dance. Skeptics point to questions about durability and consistency, cautioning that nostalgia can blur hard realities. Yet optimism persists, fueled by reports that Beckham is motivated and eager to silence doubts. If the rumor proves true, Pittsburgh wouldn't just be adding a receiver. It would be welcoming a storyline, a gamble on star power that could reshape expectations. Until ink dries and cameras roll, it remains speculation. But in Steelers country, the possibility alone has already exploded. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.